Nice treat for you today. We have Joe Sallustio that's going to be coming up here and talking about driving marketing and enrollment efficiency. Joe is renowned in higher education as an expert, a lot of experience in admissions, and he's been up here, up in that room up there, podcasting the entire summit. So check out that as well. But again, we'll get right into it. So Joe, floor is yours.
Hey everybody, how you doing? You don't need to clap yet. It's gonna, I'll see how many times I mess up first before I. Everybody doing okay? Are you have lunch fatigue right now? Everybody have lunch fatigue? Okay. Before I start, then, everybody take out a sheet of paper. Everybody take out a sheet of paper for me. Everybody needs to take out a sheet of paper. You could use one from those little books you have. If you have a little book, borrow one from your partner at your table. Everybody needs to take out a sheet of paper because I'm going to make you do something. So if you don't do this, you're going to be singled out by your peers. That's the threat that matters. Okay, on this sheet of paper, does this thing work, by the way? Okay, good. On this sheet of paper, I want you to think about and write down something that you want to say to higher education. Could be your boss, could be this person that runs your institution, it could be higher education as a whole. What's that one thing you think that we need to hear in higher ed? Give it some thought, or write that down on your sheet of paper. Write it nice and big. If you write a paragraph, I'll know you have a lot to say. But write something that you think we need to hear. I did it too. I wrote something. Yours can be a little bit heavier than mine. Mine says, lighten up. This is hard work. We need to have fun. That's what I want to say to higher education because you'll hear in a minute, interview lots of people across higher ed and some are very serious. And I go, dude, chill. It's okay. We can have fun when we do this. So what's that thing that higher ed needs to hear? Okay, you have it? All right, crumple up that piece of paper. Crumple up into a ball. Stand up. So everybody stand up. This is a good old-fashioned North Carolina snowball fight. So I want you to eye that person across the room that was looking at you weird at lunch because you took the last pecan pie and they were looking at you weird. And I want you to throw this piece of paper at them. And for about 15 seconds, we're going to have an indoor snowball fight. Ready? Set, go. Keep going. Pick up those papers. Throw them back. Really put something into it. Put an arm into it. Take out that frustration. All right. Now, if there's a crumpled up piece of paper near you, pick it up. Pick it up. Everybody can sit down. No last minute eye throws, by the way. I saw that one. All right. So, first of all, maybe you're more awake than you were before I started. So that's the first thing. Everybody stood up for a second. Number 2, you have a piece of paper in your hand. Open it up, and if you think that it is something that higher ed needs to hear that one of your colleagues wrote, raise your hand and shout out what it says. Anybody got something good? Go ahead, stand up and shout it out.
Yeah, mine is calm down, we can't control everything.
Calm down, we can't control everything. I like that. Anybody else got one?
It's okay to change.
It's okay to change.
Somehow mine came back to me. Students' lives are messy just like yours.
Yeah, students' lives are messy just like yours. Anybody got something provocative? All right.
We need to streamline our processes so it makes sense to the student and staff.
Yes. Okay, a couple more. Anybody got something really juicy? Really juicy. Anybody got a juicy one that makes sense? Let's hear it. Let's hear what you have right there. Let's hear yours.
Treat all programs and students with equal respect.
Like that. Okay, good. So this is just a fun exercise to get the juices flowing, get your thoughts moving around, because I'm not going to talk to you a lot about technology today. You guys are going to talk about chat bots and AI and this all day long. I'm going to talk to you about you, and I'm going to talk to you about the people that work for you. But I want to get a sense of the audience, and I'll tie this all back together. How many marketers, pure marketers? How many enrollment personnel, marketing, enrollment, recruitment, student services? Okay, Here, I'll give you a provocative one. I would like to tell higher education that in any other industry where you sell a product to a consumer, the people that sell are among the highest paid in the organization. I would like to say that. Funny, isn't it, that higher ed is one industry where it's not that way, right? So you probably had some that when you're coming up through the ranks and one of your mentors, my mother said, go into medical sales, you know, because you could sell and you can make money. I said, no, higher education. You know, I mean, you think about that. Why is higher ed that way? Consumer retention and consumer sales are among the lowest paid positions in the entire industry, in the scope of the industry. It makes no sense. That's what I want to say to higher education. Makes no sense. Why is it that way? So we're going to talk about moving, that's me, by the way. Who am I? Why am I on stage? My name is Joe Sallustio, now that I got all that other stuff out of the way. I work at Lindenwood University. I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategic Enrollment Management and Lindenwood Global, which is our online offerings. We have about 7,000 students, all student types. I spent 15 years in for-profit higher education. Ooh, the for-profit guys. That was me. I worked at a publicly traded, regionally accredited for-profit, and I rang the closing bell at the NASDAQ. That same company, someone said, chairman of the board looked at all 8 executives and he said, if you guys don't hit these numbers, you're all out. That's how I came up through higher ed. Now, why do I bring that up? Because in my mind, we are selling a product to a student. It is a product. They decide to buy it. We have to then deliver on it. Some of the best tactics in for-profits, there's a lot of bad tactics in for-profits, but some of the best tactics in a for-profit are now being used in nonprofit higher education. Why? Because we need enrollments. Is there anybody here that works in an institution that does not need enrollments? All right, so that's a good place for us to start. So I do this podcast called The Ed Experience. You saw me wandering around with this t-shirt. That's not for no reason. I actually am podcasting up there. And I have talked to 225 college and university presidents from across the world in the last 3 years. I have spoken to a total of 650 people in and around higher education in the last 3.5 years. So we've done 650 total episodes. I record every day at lunch. Every day in my office at lunch, I do my regular Lindenwood job, and then as soon as noon hits, I pop up, I do a podcast, and then I sit back down, go back to work. I eat sometimes while podcasting. My point is, my brain is full, and so I've got a lot of information I want to share with you. I wake up in the middle of the night and I go, oh my God, that president of so-and-so university in Doha, Qatar said this. I need to write that down. So after a while of being up all night thinking about these things, I wrote a book with a co-author. Her name's Kate Colbert. It's called Commencement, the Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education. And it takes the first 125 presidents that we interviewed, and it takes everything they said about the future of higher education and it puts it in one book. And I want to talk about that in a second, why that's important. As far as the podcast goes, we just passed 300,000 downloads of our episodes. I'm going to interview this young lady right here in about half an hour or an hour. So we'll be at 651. But we've done 184 countries have listened. 17% of our audience is global. We've got a male-female audience, almost even, which is very hard to do. Have you ever listened to a higher ed podcast? Anybody before? Okay. If it's not the Ed Experience, is it an interesting podcast? Does it keep you really engaged and get your juices flowing? I've listened to higher ed podcasts and I want to smash my head against the wall because they're so boring. You really want to have to listen. You really want to listen to higher ed if you're listening to higher ed podcasts. So we make ours fun and engaging. I use in-episode sound effects. So somebody says something and then I have, a quote from the Big Lebowski that says, I like your style, dude. So we like to keep it a little bit fresh and engaging. So lots and lots of information. We put it in the book. What's the book? It was #1 new release. It was a #1 bestseller in higher education. And 125 presidents informed it, many of which are not in this country. What do they say about the future of higher education? I'll tell you what they say. You have to read the book. No. They say, we're in deep trouble. That's what they say. That's the consensus. We're in deep trouble. And that the majority of people that work in and around higher education do not fully understand the amount of trouble that we are in. We go through our day-to-day jobs, and we meet with students every day, and it's very easy to lose the macro. What's happening in our industry? Think about this, and I jump around. I have, by the way, I don't really plan for these talks very much, so I'm going to kind of move through it. Competition's fierce. Anybody know what M&A stands for? M&A? M, the letter M, and then A? M&A? Mergers and acquisitions? M&A. Do you have an M&A team at your institution? I do. We've got one. That's why I went to work for Lindenwood. Our goal is to find institutions that are struggling but in a good place financially and bring them into a system. Okay? So think about M&A in higher education and competition. Can anybody think of a school that has closed or merged in the last 6 months? Yeah? Okay. How about, well, there's been like 3 or 4 Christian colleges. There's one very well-known, Cardinal Stritch, Catholic institution in Wisconsin, very well-known, great reputation. They're closing, right? Closures are common. They're not uncommon. Why are they common? Because people are running deficits. Because you're running a deficit and you have less revenue coming in. So your deficit just continues to slide down. Competition is fierce. You got to step up your recruitment game. I don't like the word admissions. Admissions to me says passive. You're admitted, I'm going to process your paperwork, put you in. Admissions. I like recruitment. That's a word I like. I'm going to actively recruit this student to go to my institution versus yours. You're doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing, right? Does anybody want to stand up and say, come on, take all my students right now. I love you guys. Take my students, right? No, I want to market to a student that I believe is going to resonate with the mission and the vision of Lindenwood University. But I've got to compete against all of you. And although you guys are amazing and you're a great competition, there is one thing that is harder to compete against than you. Does anybody want to take a guess at what that is? The question whether a degree has value by the public. That's harder to compete against. I would love to compete against you guys for students. You can market, we'll market, student picks a school, good for you. But I got to convince a student that a degree still has value. And they don't think so. Do you? Do you think so? Yeah? Good. I do too. But you know what? A lot of parents and a lot of adult students are saying no. It doesn't have value. Technology companies are saying, you don't need that degree right now. You can come work for us. You can get a non-credit credential. You can do whatever you want. We'll still hire you. But that's confusing, right? Because that's only some companies, not all companies. What's the difference between, anybody know what the difference is between a credential and a certificate? I don't know. I can't figure it out. I would like you to tell me because I have no stinking idea what the difference is. Are they interchangeable? Is one stackable and one not? But we use a lot of terms like this internally inside baseball. And think about the student. How do they navigate that? For credit, non-credit, certificate, credential, degree, non-degree, sometimes degree, some college, no degree, some college, no credential. Where is it in? That's very hard to compete against. So it means we have to be very, very good at messaging. We have to help redefine the value of higher education to students. We do. Because they're coming in and they're wondering whether they should invest. Okay? We have one thing that we have, and I'll jump around a little bit. We have really ridiculous time constraints in higher ed, right? What other business do you go, you know what, I'm just going to be here. I'm going to be here for a while. I'm not sure how long I'll be a customer. It really depends on all these factors, but I'm just going to be around here for a while. We don't really communicate a finish line as accurately as we should, all right? How many of you work on a traditional semester system? Spring, fall, spring, fall, spring, fall. Adult students, they don't understand that. They want it right now, monthly, weekly, right? Grand Canyon University, 52 starts a year. 52 start every week. That's hard to compete against, right? If you have an institution that does monthly start dates, and you have an adult student, that's hard to compete against, because I can say, at my institution, you could start next week. If you go over here, you have to wait 2.5 months. Why would you do that? You're ready right now. So think about frequency being an advantage in your institution. The more intake periods you have, the more opportunity you have to increase enrollment. Take a look at your traditional calendar if you have one. Do you have modules built in? Do you have a 16-week term with 2 8-week modules? Do you have a quarter system, 12 weeks, whatever you have? Can you create more entry points? Can you get with your faculty? Can you get with the staff and create more entry points? More entry points means more opportunity. Okay? I have to let you think about degree value less if you're ready to start now, and I can start you now. Consumer hypersensitivity, I mean cost, length. Cost, length. You get the idea here. Cost and length, that's what consumers want to know. How long does it take? How much is it going to cost me? I don't want any debt. I don't want to take on debt. So how are we communicating ROI? And is ROI, I'm asking you guys, strictly a financial calculation? Is ROI more than what you put in, how much you make when you get out? If it is more than a financial calculation, how are you communicating that to the student before they start? I mean, you think about it, right? If you just tell a student who's coming in, if you graduate with us, you're going to make $55,000 a year, or whatever you want to say. You're going to have a great career. That may not be enough. That student may actually want to learn. And so you have to communicate what the value is learning to them in order for them to pick your institution. Oh, artificial intelligence. Boy, you guys had a lot of that this week, artificial intelligence. You're going to keep getting more of it. I'm not going to go too deep into AI, but I will say this. Plan that your students are going to come in with a set of personalized AI tools that they already use. And they are going to be expecting you at your institution to produce that set of tools because they already learn with that set of tools. I spend probably 30 minutes a day just on AI. I check out AI tools. I'll give you guys some tips. They're on Instagram. There's an Instagram account called AI The Revolution. And every day it spits out new AI. It'll say, here's the top 20 for this, the top 20 for that. So I take a picture, I put it in my camera roll, and when I get to work on Monday, I go through all 20 of the AI tools. And I go, how could I use this one? How could I use that one? And I'm going to give you some good ones right now. Barely, like the bear, barely.ai. Okay? Really good one. If you have an article that you need to read, you run Barely right over the top, and within about 3 seconds, it gives you an executive summary of the article. Ooh, I wish I had that in my doctorate program. Wish I had that. Okay, that's a good one. Cohesive.so. You can put Instagram campaigns together, YouTube campaigns together, linked it, whatever you want, in about 10 seconds. Okay? There's a couple of good tools for you. I'll save a couple more for later. Financial savvy. I got to look at my time because I talk a lot. Students understand more than ever how much things cost. So, if we know that cost is a concern, how do we take that on directly? If we're talking about marketing and enrollment efficiency, and we know that a student can easily choose, well, let me ask this question. Do you guys think that a student can easily choose any from a slate of institutions, or is it hard to choose? Easy? Hard? Depends on student. That's a good point. They get messaged to a lot, right? So Southern New Hampshire University, y'all know SNHU, okay? 150,000 students. The fastest growing segment of their population are 4-year undergraduate students taking online courses instead of going to a residential experience. Crap. Shoot. That's not good. That's not good for us. If a student is going to rethink what college means and go to a fully online institution who's reducing costs because they don't have any of the fixed costs that come with the residential experience, that's tough to compete with. So how do we do it better? Well, we have to understand the state of higher education first. From this book, you guys are going to find this interesting. We surveyed a bunch of people. 45% of higher ed leaders say their institutions are exploring a merger or acquisition. Think about that. Look at your peers. How many institutions do we have in here? Maybe some state schools. That's less so, although if you see what's happening in Connecticut and other states where they're consolidating all their state schools, that's part of what this is. That means 4 out of the 10 people in here, your institution is looking at merger or acquisition. It's scary to think about that, isn't it? Are you in those conversations? Would you admit it if you were? All right, so this is an important stat for us. This means our industry is shrinking. If our industry is shrinking, there's just less students. And if there's less students and you're having these conversations, I hope, with your teams, and there's less students to go around, what do you do to up your game on a daily basis? If you go to work and you do the same thing and you just go through the motions, that's not going to be good enough. There have to be moments and times you set aside to blow up your model. You got to blow it up. You got to rebuild it for the future. You have to think about meeting student demands right now. You ever heard the saying, we meet students where they are? Well, they're coming with AI tools. How are you doing that right now? How are you meeting students where they are with a slate of AI tools that they have access to in their classes? Now, there's no faculty. I don't think there's many faculty in this room. But that faculty should be thinking very quickly about how to implement AI into our operations, and we should be forcing that. We, marketing and enrollment, should be forcing that, going, if you want students in your classroom, and you want to be able to hire this adjunct faculty, by the way, you won't be able to hire any faculty if there's no students. You need to get this done. We need programs that involve and implement AI. Or else, how am I going to market? I want to be able to say, this program has AI built into it. Or I have an AI minor of some kind. I need to communicate technology to everybody that's interested in it. So you have to force that change on the front end. That's part of the reason why we wrote this book. For anybody that's taken a look at it, it's the real talk of higher ed. The reason I had you guys do that exercise is because that's the way this book is written like that. The presidents, they speak on it openly and honestly. I do, and we just kind of say it. We just kind of say, so somebody could have this book and slap this down on the table and go, you know what, there's an institution in middle America right now that is messing with their academic calendar. Why can't we? Here it is. They're saying it. Why aren't we doing it? Right, so it's proof. It's social proof. That's what this book is. 33%, same. Higher ed leaders anticipate the future of a higher ed will look vastly different from what we know it to be now. That was pre-ChatGPT. Pre-ChatGPT, what would it be now? So think about that. We had a scale, vastly different, somewhat different, slightly different, vastly different, 1/3. I think it will look vastly different. Here's something I think about. What if, I think Harvard just put out an article and said that they're doing chatbot teaching assistants right now. So you can go one-on-one with a chatbot teaching assistant. No faculty member. What if there was a fully AI university? Everything you did was based on AI, but it only cost you $5,000 a year to do it. And if you wanted faculty-led, you have to pay a premium. That's the stuff I sit up all night thinking about is how do I create that? How do I create a premium model? If AI is going to reduce the cost, I want premium. I want to do both. Right? How do I do that? What does that look like? How do I create it? Who do I need? Strategy is important here. So let's look at the consumer, and then we'll get to some of the tips. So your consumer's tech savvy, you guys. If you don't think that they know more than you about tech, sit down with one of your incoming students. Sit down with them. They're going to out-AI us 7 ways from Sunday. Right? They know a lot about technology right now. In fact, many of the influencers right now are influencing based on technology, on AI, right? That's, if you want to become a thought leader, whatever that term means, I'd laugh because I feel like it's the same people in higher ed that you always see on these talks. Like, God, who are these, we're thought leaders. No, you're just people that got picked to speak. Here I am, same thing, I got picked to speak. Any one of you could be up here saying the same things I am. You're doing the same exact work I'm doing. But why don't we get the voice? That's why I did the podcast, so I can give voice to people doing the real work. But students know more than us, and they growth hack. Micro-credentials, non-credit, skill stacking, PLA. Everybody know PLA, prior learning assessment? I took X at Coursera. I took 10 of them, and I want 3 credits for it. How hard is it to do that? How hard is it for me to get those credits at your institution versus your institution? Because I'm going to go there if it's easier. So one of the biggest things I can recommend is you take a very hard look from a marketing and enrollment perspective at your prior learning assessment policy. I don't care if it's academic. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me boogeyman accreditor is going to come. Get me. Anybody ever get that before? We can't do that. Our accreditor. Oh, come on. I've interviewed 3 of the presidents of higher ed regional accreditors, and they laugh. When I literally ask them, I go, people use you as the boogeyman. You want to innovate? Well, our accreditor is going to have da-da-da. And I tell that. Heather Perfetti, she's the president of Middle States, and she laughed and she said, yeah, that's not true. We could care less. Just do what you say you're going to do. We don't even care what it is. As long as it meets the standards, you can innovate 7 ways from Sunday if you want to. Accreditors are not the boogeyman. Don't let that happen to you. Don't let somebody say, our accreditation. You call BS. You call BS. You call me, and I'll put you on the phone with one of the accreditors' presidents, and we'll bring them in. You can get on the phone with them. You can talk to them yourself. Like, that's how passionate I am. I think it's ridiculous that we use accreditation as a boogeyman. Accreditation allows us to offer Title IV. It does not dictate our operations. We have to meet standards. It does not mean we can't innovate. Anyway, I go off on these tangents. Sorry. Simplicity and convenience. Here's your question. Here's your takeaway. How long does it take? Whatever it is. How long does it take? How long does it take for me to enroll? How long does it take for me to register? How long does it take for me to get through the financial aid process? How long does it take for an advisor to call me? How long does it take for somebody to reach out to me if I've submitted an inquiry? How long does it take? Do you know? Do you know exactly how long it takes? If you don't know if you're effective or not. So if we're driving efficiency in marketing and enrollment, you have to measure not just the numbers, but how long it takes. If you don't know how long it takes, then you're not looking at it from the student's perspective. It could take a little bit of time. It could take a lot of time. They may think it takes a lot of time. You may think it takes a little bit of time. That perspective makes a big difference. How long does it take, and do you know? Did you enroll at your university lately? Did you submit a lead form as Brian Brown to see how long somebody took to get back to you? How long does it take? Did you walk a student online through the registration process to find out the barriers that actually exist to register for courses? Oh, that course isn't available. We're going to have to give you a different course. Well, I'm going to go to a different college then. Right? How long does it take? It's the simplest question, but one of the most important questions you can ask in a world where you don't accept a lack of speed. Do you? Your Uber's going to be here in half an hour. Everybody good with that? Your Amazon package will be here in 1 week. You good with that? Your Uber Eats that you ordered will come tomorrow night for dinner. Not tonight. You good with that? We are not good with slow. We are good with fast. And so are students. And if our processes are not fast, they will go somewhere else. Okay? Agree or disagree? Okay? Here's how you test it. Put them through a slow process. See how long you can hang on to them. They're going to go, this is ridiculous. I'm not dealing with this. I'm on TikTok. I swipe in threes. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. 3 seconds. You probably did it too on your Instagram account earlier when they were talking about chatbots. Right? You're looking for chatbot stuff. You're looking for AI. You're scrolling. You're looking. We're on the move 24/7. Your students are the same. Higher ed, what's the fastest industry you could think of? Is higher ed in the top 3? right? But we're talking about recruiting more students. We're talking about more population. We're talking about AI. And we're talking about growth. But you wouldn't put higher ed in the top 3 industries that you could think of that are fast. Until that day comes, we're going to keep working from behind. And that's not a good place to be. This is from Laura Ibsen, my good friend. She's the CEO of Ellucian. Any Ellucian banners? She said, "Student demands are changing wildly." It's one of the quotes from the book, and she's one of the leaders that we interviewed. And that is the truth, isn't it? Let's talk, you probably know this guy. Anybody know that guy? I interviewed him yesterday on the podcast. Changing landscape, changing student population with a diverse profile. We get that, right? The multicultural majority is coming. The diverse profiles, you have to decide who you're going to serve. Are you going to exclude or include? If you decide to include, how are you updating your processes for that? Right? How are you updating your processes for a student who might have struggled in school, who doesn't have the best GPA? Does GPA matter? Do SATs and ACTs matter? One of the things that I think is the most ridiculous requirements for students are recommendation letters and essays. Recommendation letter. Have you ever written a recommendation letter for a colleague who's going for a job? Have you? Anybody ever done that? Okay, maybe I'll call myself out. The person says, "Can you write me a recommendation letter?" I say, "Absolutely. Why don't you write it and I'll sign it?" Why don't you write it and I'll sign it? I might make a couple edits just to make my words sound like my own, but I'll just sign it. You write it. You do the work. If you don't think your students are doing that with AI, think again. We're going to look at some incredible recommendation letters written by ChatGPT. Incredible. They're going to be amazing. We're going to go, wow, this student put 3 recommendation letters together in like 5 minutes. You know, think about that. We have to find other ways to assess students and their ability to succeed in ways that make more sense, but we still hold on to recommendation letters. I mean, it's bizarre. Any adult students in this room? Anybody that's gone back to school for a master's or doctoral later in life? Okay, good. I did too. Go get 3 recommendation letters. I said, no, I am not doing that. I'll just pick another school. I swear to you. I'll just pick another school. I'm not going to waste my time. I was a VP of admissions for a school that had 5,000 students, and I was overseeing about 120 people, and you want me to go get 3 recommendation letters? I mean, I'm kind of offended a little bit, like, don't waste my time. I'll just go over here. And I did. I went down the university down the street. You have to think about how everything you put in place for students is going to impact their decision making. Geography is gone. Welcome to the online world, ladies and gentlemen, where you can select any university from across the world. Right? There's universities in UK, 3-year bachelor's degree, 25,000. 25,000, 3-year bachelor's degree. Do you want to compete against that? I don't. That's tough, because we're 4 years. We like our gen eds. By the way, what are gen eds? You know? Right? Isn't that something you want to say to higher ed? Let's call them something else. Let's call them like relevant workplace skill courses. Or, you know, remember that course that you guys took or that you see in your portfolio of courses called Mathematics for Excel? Well, there's a course that sounds really good. No, it's Math 101 or Algebra. I mean, where's my AI prompt generation course, right? Where's my leadership skills for 21st century management general ed course? We just call them crappy things and we expect consumers to figure out what they are. Anyway, get off topic. Personalization, and then I want to talk about cultivation and capture to switch to the marketing a little bit. You all have to do 2 things and you have to do them simultaneously. You need to cultivate as many student inquiries as possible right now because you need enrollment for your next term. And you need to put money into cultivation marketing so that you get student interest later too. So maybe you're juniors or maybe you're adult students that haven't even thought about education yet. How do you split that budget between capturing leads now and capturing leads later? I hope you have the answer because I have no stinking clue. I've been just messing around for about 20 years with it to try to figure out how I generate leads over time, all the time. One of the things that I figured out is I think we need to run more re-entry campaigns for our students who have graduated or dropped. We have huge pools of students who are leaving higher ed. You would think that you have a re-entry campaign that's on autopilot 24/7 to every single student who doesn't finish. They don't finish a class, they don't attend, they don't finish their degree, they don't come back for some reason, that they're just in this auto-generated email forever to get them to come back. And all you're doing is message and splitting the A-B, you're doing A-B split testing on the messaging to get those students to return. But that's somewhere we have to do better, or else there wouldn't be 40 million Americans with some college no degree. How does that even happen? Right? Has anybody sat down to think about how we get to the point where we have 40 million people with some college no degree? What the heck were we doing wrong? What are we doing wrong? How does a student just up and leave after they have credits invested? COVID didn't help, that's for sure. But there are millions before COVID. What are we not doing? What are we not seeing? That these students just drop our institutions like a bad habit and don't return. Think about loyalty, brand loyalty. Any travelers? Anybody travel frequently? Okay, where do you stay, sir? When you travel, you stay at hotels? Okay, what hotel chain? Okay, anybody else? Okay. Hilton, you know what I'm going to say. So I've said it too. No, you don't know what I'm saying. I stay at Marriott's, that's what I'm going to say. I only stay at Marriott's. Why? Well, I traveled 50% of the time for 14 years and I hit lifetime platinum titanium. If I stay at a Hilton, I don't get any points. I'm going to stay in a Marriott. I get points. And when I get points, I want to come back. Okay? Does anybody, how many any doctorate degrees in here? Okay, right here. Can you tell me, if you're comfortable, where you went for your undergrad? University of Virginia College at Wise. And then where'd you go for your graduate? University of Mississippi. Where'd you go for your doctoral? Okay, so 3 different institutions. Is that weird to anyone? Is that weird? Anybody find that weird? No? Okay, where are you going? Community College, University of Texas, Western Governors, Maryville University. I mean, that's not Marriott. It's not like Marriott. I find that weird in higher ed. I have 3. I never went back to the same place for my degrees. Some places won't take you back. Sometimes they don't offer the degrees that you have. But typically, we don't see repeat customers in higher ed. Isn't that weird? In any other business where there's consumers, you come back. Right? You're laughing because you have 3 schools too? 2 of the 3. Okay, so you went back to the same place at least once? But think about that. I mean, really think about that. Going to 3 different schools is pretty par for the course for us, or 2 if you have your master's. Why is that? I mean, there's no brand loyalty. We have to develop brand loyalty. Your students have to go, I went to Lindenwood University and I will not go anywhere else except Lindenwood University when I come back to go to school. That's experience. That's not just marketing and enrollment. That's creating an experience that surpasses anything that we've ever done before. How do you create experience? I'm big on the word experience, obviously. The EdUp experience, we named it that way for a reason because we said anybody who comes on this podcast is not just leaving and going, oh, I was on this other podcast. We want them to leave, go, whoa, that was the best podcast I've ever been on. Now I want to be part of this community and I'm going to connect with these other leaders in higher education. But we don't do that very well in higher ed. So if we're talking about increasing enrollment efficiency and marketing efficiency, keep the people you already have. It's not complicated, but it is very odd to me that we don't talk about loyalty more. Marriott gives points for stays. Could you give points for stays? Could you get, I talk about this all the time, so this is not proprietary. Why can't I get 50 points for every successful course? And if I amass X points, I can get a 50% off on my graduate degree with my university. Why can't I get points for student events? Why can't I get points for helping with marketing messaging if I boost a post, or you boost a university post? Think about those things. That's how the cashback card, who is it, Chase? Cashback? Giving you cashback. That's why you get the card. We don't do anything higher ed remotely like that to keep brand loyalty. What can you think of that you do in your life that could apply to higher ed to create brand loyalty? Okay, give it some thought. Amazon makes it really easy for us to buy shit. That's our brand loyalty. Can I say that? Too late. They make it possible for us to buy stuff. That's why we go back, because it's super easy. I don't go to Walmart online because Amazon's like 2 seconds. My credit card information's in there. I just swipe. Think about how you can make higher education more loyal. Get more loyalty from your customers. So let's look at differentiation. I love this one. Is quality a true differentiator? Because I was talking to Nell here, and she said to me, her institution by far is of superior quality to anybody in this room. She said it. I mean, you agree, right? No? Quality is not a differentiator. I don't care. Maybe to the 1% of people that believe that Harvard offers a better education. Harvard's accredited by the same accrediting body as other institutions. Maybe you get faculty that are different or elevated somehow, but by and large, community college, private college, public college, doesn't matter. Educational quality is parity. There's parity in quality, right? You probably have an adjunct instructor at your community college that's teaching for the private college down the road and for Yale, because that's how adjuncts make money. And they're teaching for 3 or 4 different institutions. You're getting the same education. What else? What's the and? And what makes your institution special? Because saying we've got the best MBA program in the land, that ain't gonna do it. I could go to the MBA in the UK, I can go to an MBA in Africa, I can take it online, and I could take the best one in the world, not just the best one in the United States if I really want to. Well, how's my time? 5 minutes. So I'll skip some of this because I talked about it. This quote comes from Malik Peter Curry. Dr. Malik Peter, he's at Unity College. The best education for the future puts learners in the driver's seat as never before, which challenges institutions to cede a lot of control to the customer. That's true, isn't it? But we don't like to let go of control. We're admissions and marketing people. Control is what we do for a living. How do we create it so the student has more control over their own journey, their own destiny? It's not rocket science, ladies and gentlemen. Look at this list: simplicity, convenience, heavy reliance on technology, customizable social media. I want you to think about this real fast. If you go to Instagram, everybody have Instagram in here? Go to Instagram and you want to take a picture of the Element Engage Summit. You can take the picture, you can edit it, you can put writing inside of it, you can change the color, you can do all of that within the app. You don't need to go anywhere else to mess with it. You do it all right there. You don't need to jump around. Instagram makes it really easy for you to produce a piece of content without ever leaving the platform. How do I do the same for a student? Crystallize your value proposition. Quality education here, and what else? And what else that's going to make me believe that quality education is going to be delivered? Address cost and debt and academic calendar changes. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can give you one piece of advice, look at your academic calendar and find ways to create more input periods. The more input you have, the better. Ooh, there's a word here. Anybody want to point it out? How dare you? This is higher education. Don't you dare say sale. You're not selling anything. You are. Relentlessly prioritize. Drive a sales-based culture. You have people that you hire that are not high-paid employees that you ask to do one hell of a job. Enrolling students is not easy. I did it for years. It's hard. It is sales like you wouldn't believe. If we don't embrace the fact that we are selling something, then you will not message it appropriately, and the campus community that you're working with is not going to fully appreciate the job that you do. I promise you that. Even if they do appreciate the job you do right now, which I would bet there's probably some undervalued folks in here, you need to tell them what you're doing, because there is no student in that classroom if you're not selling that student on your university. And of course, the data never lies. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes my presentation today. Thank you for having me. I'll do a Q&A, yeah? Q&A? Anyone? Questions?
How many entry points does your university have? And have you ever heard or discussed, or what's your thought on open entry courses?
Open entry courses like MOOCs? Okay.
Like if I want to start calculus today, I can
Yeah.
start and enter a course that's been going.
Right, so what you're talking about is non-standard term, right? There's standard term, there's non-standard term, and there's non-term. Yeah, and there's non-term, that's the actual packaging designations by Title IV. So Lindenwood was semester, spring, fall, spring, fall, spring, fall. So we had 16-week terms with 8-week modules, so we had 5. We had fall 1, fall 2, spring 1, spring 2, and summer. As of July 3rd, 1 week from today, we are adding, or not 1 week from today, but we are adding non-standard term programs. So we're going to be moving to 6 more dates. 6 more dates. So we'll technically have 11 entry periods. I've been working on that for a year. It's been taking me a year to get to that point, because you have to refashion all the curriculum, you have to create entry points, you have to update your packaging and your SIS, you got to make your CRM track things appropriately. So it's been a journey, but as of July 3rd, that's when it begins. Yes, problems, lots of problems. But there's precedent. Schools do this. National University, anybody heard of National University, big online university, Southern California? They have 4-week terms. 4-week terms. You can start and they do 3 tracks. You can actually start every 2 weeks. One more question, I think, and I'm getting the hook.
What's one of the worst cases you've seen of like the metric becoming the goal, and how would you like avoid that happening in the future?
You mean like as terms of enrollment goes? The metric becoming the goal? Well, that's a good question. I think the metric has to be part of the goal. You know, the part of what we do in higher ed has been conditioned that we're not really selling. And so we have to open up our hearts and minds to the fact that the student can go anywhere they want. And if we don't have accountability for growth, then we won't have growth. You got to set the goals. You got to give the numbers. All right, guys, I think I'm out of time. Thank you. Oh, one more. I give myself a third little applause. Thank you.
I've been in higher education for a very short period of time, so I don't know if it's enrollment, whatever you call it. But do you, on your sales team, do you do a personality profile to see if they have a sales team profile? Because there is that tool that most organizations use to know that they can persuade, they can sell to hire. And also, do you do sales training with that group that's not higher education enrollment? Because my background is in luxury resort real estate.
Yep.
And so whatever that team is called.
Yeah, so the answer is yes and yes. So what I would do really quickly, go to your job descriptions. If the job description says admissions counselor and you're going to walk down the yellow brick road and tour students on the school, you're not going to get the type of candidate you need that actually sells. You have to make the job description reflect the actual functions of the job, which are to meet with students, convince them consultatively to come to the university, and so on. And yes, we do a lot of sales training. We call it that, sales training. And it's from people who are not in higher ed. So, thank you, everyone.